turns it on. Okay, welcome to Hyde Park Special Meeting and Workshop, Monday, October 17, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a motion to accept the meetings of the October 3rd and 5th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any public comments on resolutions? No? Okay, we can step into the workshop for the controller and the 2023 tentative budget and the presentation of the preliminary budget for the town of Hyde Park fiscal year 2023. But at first, we have a letter that's going to be introduced by one of our board members who's not with us right now.
This letter is from Lynn Ruggiero, Ward 2 councilperson. I'm sorry to miss this hastily organized workshop for the budget, but I have a previous commitment that does not allow me to be there. I have been cognizant of the budget process since August, seeking to be included, but not have been. And the dates of the meetings have not been developed earlier. I sought assistance / advisement from a friend and neighbor who has expertise well beyond mine, through his MBA from Yale and his career experience. I have asked him to review and read this letter into record. The preliminary budget was accepted at the special meeting, which was called to meet the legal deadline, and I voted for that acceptance so that the town would meet the legal requirement of having a preliminary budget to work on. We did not vote to approve that budget since we had not seen it. The tentative budget summary was presented at that meeting also. That, I know, was not wholly correct because it was printed and confirmed publicly by the comptroller that the Hyde Park Library had not submitted its budget. In reality, the Hyde Park Library budget had been submitted to the comptroller on August 23rd. I must also question the accuracy of other information because of many entries that do not seem, even on the surface, to be realistic. For example, on page 1, under actual for 2022, it is recorded as 0, non-property tax distribution by county, and 0 for tax collector fees, and 0 for recorded as 0 non-property tax distribution by county, and 0 by tax collector fees, and 0 for tax collector fees, HPC SD. It also has 0 for sales tax. I believe that county electronically deposits the money into the town's account. As I was told, revenue fluctuates and cannot be fully known for the next year, so conservative presentation is safest. That being the case, it still needs to be as accurate as possible, meaning that money that has been received should be in the equation. There are many zeros throughout this budget, which makes me wonder how it can be reconciled, how a balanced budget can be developed. If many pieces of the budget are missing, there are too many specific instances of zeros to ask specific, especially where the actual has an amount and the proposed is 0. I trust that the workshop will elicit questions and generate positive answers.
So that is in the record. I don't want to interrupt the chair, but just to touch on a few of the legal aspects of the budget, because we do have an entirely new board, new comptroller, that it's all outlined in the town law. So these dates are always going to come up at this time. I hardly think it'll be surprising to anybody next year that we all will come together and discuss the same thing. And there's a very specific process that the town has followed and will follow through the end of it, which they've done. It starts with the tentative budget. It's modified, changed, altered after discussion with the board members. Then you come back together, which you're doing tonight, to have the preliminary budget, which can also be changed, altered again. So all of these discussions and questions are good. I'm sure the board members will have more. And then it goes to the public hearing, at which time it can be changed and altered again. So I thank the councilwoman for her concerns, as I'm sure the rest of the board does, but it is an ongoing process. So with that comes a lot of adjustment, a lot of flexibility. So I just applaud the board for doing a good job. Comptroller, thank you so much. So I just wanted to set that schedule so everybody knows what we're here to do.
Okay. I just want to show one thing here, that this is an email documentation you probably cannot see, but if you look at the red, those are Jim's responses to all of the tentative budget questions that Lynn has had. This is on before she went to go away. Now, she's been included in this, so I don't understand the verbiage of not being included at all. She will call, email, or stays pretty much in contact with all of us, including Jim, whenever she has a question. So this letter confuses me because I just don't think it was really appropriate, to be honest with you. And Jim, would you step up and give a rebuttal to this letter first?
Good evening. So I would like to have had the workshop move right along, but I feel that I must reply to the councilwoman's letter. First and foremost, this was not a hastily organized workshop. This has been carefully organized and planned since the last board meeting when the tentative budget was approved, a meeting that the councilwoman herself attended and voted at. I mean, I'd rather not address an empty chair, and I'm happy that the councilwoman is enjoying the historical and cultural aspects of Egypt, but I feel she has no credibility criticizing the budget process or complaining about the lack of her involvement. The councilwoman has had no trouble reaching out to my office throughout the year for any of the initiatives that she's been championing. So to suddenly hear that she feels that she's been left out of the budget process is both surprising and unfortunately rings less than sincere. The councilwoman sent an email on October 11th with a short list of budget questions, which I answered within 30 minutes. If she had more questions or if she was upset about something, all she had to do was continue to email, call, or even just drop in my office. The councilwoman is incorrect with stating that the preliminary budget was accepted at the special meeting. That was the tentative budget that was presented and approved. Tonight is when the preliminary budget is being presented to the town board. I question if the councilwoman has even looked at the current 2022 budget since she has been elected. All these so-called zeros that have her concerned are legacy expense lines that were created and kept in the annual budgets by the previous administration. Any concerns that the councilwoman holds about these so-called zeros should be directed toward the previous administration, as that is how they maintained their budgets. My office has actually taken the 60-page 2022 budget and parsed it down to 47 pages for the 2023 budget. This was accomplished by eliminating these zero expense lines and other lines that have not been used for years. Additionally, we have consolidated expense lines, similar expense lines through the various departments to comply with best accounting practices. Unfortunately, our accounting software system has been failing since the beginning of the year. It is unsupported by its creator and has been obsolete since 2016. It requires daily support and assistance from our IT vendor to keep it running. So even though my office posts revenues it receives, the town receives, some of these reports fail to show it at a timely manner, and we have to go in and manually manipulate it to have it show up. So I resent the councilwoman's questioning the integrity of my office, and especially of my senior account clerk, who has worked tirelessly to clean up what the previous administration has left us. Finally, I feel the councilwoman does both a disservice to the town board and the budget process by making claims that are unsupported and in some cases completely incorrect. I question her motivation for submitting a letter criticizing this next budget iteration while she is on vacation and cannot make her comments in person or field any of my responses herself. I actually question whether the comments in her letters were either authored by her, but more likely by some other malcontents in the town. So, that is my feeling on the matter. Anybody can come to me during the process between the preliminary and the adopted. My door is always open, my emails are always answered, etc. So,
Jim, can you give us a breakdown on the budget of the preliminary budget summary
yes.
on how we've done?
So, we have a sheet for the Town of Hyde Park 2023 preliminary budget summary, which helps to highlight the main aspects of it. We show a comparison with 2022 adopted compared to the 2023 tentative. We have the general fund, we have the highway fund, and our net operating budget. Then we show our ambulance districts, our sewer districts, and our lighting. And then, of course, our grand total for the operating budget, which goes up a very modest 2.29% as compared to last year. Most of these changes, we have our health insurance costs and the insurance buyouts are our highest cost increase townwide. This has been some of it that is the reason for the budget increase. Additionally, due to inflation and our energy crisis, worldwide, vehicle fuel costs and our utility costs are our second highest cost increase for the town and has been allocated for that also in our various usage. That is some of it that has increased our town budget by the 2.33%. We do have some happy things. Our revenue targets were increased by approximately $160,000 compared to when we had the tentative. And our debt service amounts were kind of tweaked and finalized, and the total amount is actually down approximately $185,000 as compared to last year's debts, or this year's debt service. And I'd like to commend the town supervisor for creating a preliminary budget that is only 2.29% more than the 2022 adopted budget. The actual increase by the 2022 budget was 4%, more than 4%, and they didn't have any of these issues that we are currently facing. The 2023 preliminary budget provides for almost all departmental needs while weathering runaway inflation and the unexpected health insurance increase. So I stand pleased with what we have been able to create so far. We still have almost a month left before we have our final adoption. We have public hearing input and, of course, our town board to continue to look at some of these expense lines and revenue lines to come up with our final product.
Does any of the current board members have any questions for Jim?
I'd like to thank Jim for spending time with me every time I have a question on this budget, because it is pretty detailed and kind of complicated, but there's many line items. But the more you read through it and digest it, it seems that you can pick something apart. And every time I call Jim, and I even came down today for an hour earlier prior to the meeting and spent a good half hour with Jim, he answered all my questions, and I appreciate you doing that. And
Very kind.
thank you very much for the job that you're doing, and I think we're on track and going in the right direction here.
Thank you.
Don?
I would also like to thank Jim and his office for all the great work he did. And at our last meeting, I had told Jim that outside of a single page, that it's very difficult for me to break down and digest a whole town's budget. And he said his door is always open. As a matter of fact, I had an opportunity to speak to him today, that I could come in and speak to him about any of the items at any time. And I was under the impression that that was extended to the whole board at the last meeting. So I appreciate your time, Jim. Thank you very much.
Too kind. Thank you.
Nicole?
I have not had any issue with the process. I was called into department meetings regarding budgets for departments that I liaison with. I find Jim to be very open. Whether it's an email or a phone call, there's been no question unanswered for me. So I'm not sure where the remarks are really stemming from. It is an undaunting process. It's a very large budget, lots of lines, lots of pages. It's a lot to go through. It can be overwhelming, but I don't see any shortfalls from the comptroller's office, both Jim and Danielle. And I'm not certain why the councilwoman would have not known that October is budget season. As Sarah explained, it is written in the town code, these laws, there are laws regarding when things need to be passed. And I know we had talked earlier, she had mentioned since August that she knew this was the season. Unfortunately, she had plans to go on vacation.
Mhm.
Okay,
I think her input is still,
Still
she's
have a month, she
available.
can-
I
yeah.
mean, we live in a global society. If she wanted to input, electronically, there were other avenues she could have, or other things she probably could have said, but that's not my comment. I haven't had a problem with the process. It's a lot, but thank you.
okay. Nicole, you want to read the first resolution, please?
Resolution 1017-1 of 2022, resolution authorizing the Town of Hyde Park Town Board to approve and set the public hearing for the Town of Hyde Park preliminary budget for fiscal year 2023.
May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion's, any opposed? Motion's carried. John?
Resolution 1017-2 of 2022, resolution authorizing the Town of Hyde Park Town Board to amend Resolution 1023-10 of 2022, authorizing the Board of Ethics to retain special legal counsel to assist in handling an ethics complaint to reflect a change in said resolution to include the authorized amount allowed to be spent for the hiring of the said counsel.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, do we have any new or old business? No?
I got one thing, Supervisor.
Go ahead.
We are working, Caroline's trying to set up right now to have a workshop or some type of meeting for the residents of Ward 3 to address flooding, give the people in Ward 3 an update of the dam reconstruction, and review some of the maps that were submitted to the town, and basically just a brief overview of what we've been doing since we're came on board here to address the Ward 3 flooding. And that meeting will be publicized when we come up with the actual date on our town website, and we will be communicating that with the people so that they can come out and hopefully hear what we got to say and give their input.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Anybody else? No? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.